This is looking at problem solving that some problems that we had when we were either rehearsing or during our final performance of This Is Going to Hurt, and how we got around the issues. So the first one, we had quite a lot of people off during rehearsals, myself included. So I think because I had monologues as my scenes, I think everyone else just sort of did a run through without mine there, so they could get their transitions smooth, they could get them sorted while I was learning my lines from home when I wasn't very well. And we did the same with a couple of other people that weren't in, and we filled in for them just in case they weren't in on the day as well, so we knew their lines ready to go in case somebody else had to fill in for them. And that worked really well, and thankfully everyone was there on the day, so we didn't have to worry about filling in for anybody, but everyone knew their lines and it went really well. The C-section scene, that links again to attendance. We didn't have everyone there, so we just had people blocking where other people would be, because we had a lift. I got lifted up during the scene as the patient, so we had people blocking in where other people should have been. So for example, I had Eve on one side, like near my head, and I had River the other side, but River wasn't in for one of them, so Eve moved more centre and sort of grabbed both my shoulders rather than just the one. And she had Grace and Ruby on standby as well, who were sort of grabbing my back and making sure I got lifted from there. So that worked really well, because like I said, everyone was in on the day and everybody knew the lift. Whether everybody was in or only a couple of people were in, everybody knew the lift and what we had to do during the C-section scene, because we moved slightly away from naturalism for that one, and we moved more towards frantic assembly type thing with the lifts, and we had red ribbons symbolising blood when we were counting out and making sort of like a choreographed routine for that scene to show what was happening in a less naturalistic way. And we, well, not me, but people who were playing doctors and nurses during the C-section scene were wearing gloves, and they had Katrina bought the gloves, and Katrina said, I'll dye the ends with red food colouring to make sure it looked like there was blood on the end of the gloves, so it sort of symbolised more blood on Adam's hands. It's more of a symbolism thing. However, the red food colouring would not dry on the latex gloves that we had, so we had to, on the day, we had to think of something quick, and thankfully somebody had some fake blood with them, so we popped fake bloods on the end and let it dry, which worried me because I was wearing a cream jumper, so I was like, if they have not dried, I am getting fake blood all over this jumper and it is not coming out. But thankfully all was good, it dried fine. Learning lines and movement, that was sometimes a bit of a struggle, but to get around that we had a file that we were using. It was my file that we were using for the scenes, as sort of like a patient file or a nurse's file, to go around being like, right, I need to check this room, this patient, that patient, so and so. And we had some emergency scripts in there for people that weren't sure of lines and things, so we could check them as we were going on. But I think everybody mastered their lines anyway, like literally nobody looked at that. The only reason they looked at that was for the scene order, because we had to add scenes in, take some out, re-add them, so it was just to make sure that everybody knew the scene order and everything. But we managed, and nobody looked at the file, and everybody knew their lines by the end anyway, because we did another couple of run-throughs that morning, so everybody's lines were down and sorted. So that was I think that was a precaution that we didn't need. And during the performance we forgot a couple of pieces of set that we needed to use, but we got around that pretty easy, because what we were missing two black blocks that we were using as a headrest for a bed, and then we had Caden stood behind them to make sure that they didn't fall, because Ruby was a patient and Ruby's sort of headboard was missing, which is what the two blocks were being used. So Caden just stayed where he intended to be, just to sort of like cover that up, and you couldn't even tell that we needed them. Like, it worked really well. So I think those were all the problems we had during our rehearsals and final performance, but we all managed to get around them really well, which which was great.